Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I'm James McGowan.
Hi, I'm Jessica Faust.
And today we have with us our newest agent at BookEnds, Ramona Pina.
Hi.
Hi, Ramona.
So if you watched videos, if you're an avid viewer, you know that we did a huge series in introducing every agent at BookEnds, I think last year now. And since Ramona's new, we're going to introduce her.
And you can go watch all of those videos and get to know everybody at BookEnds anytime.
You can, especially if you're coming here from Ramona's bio on the website, then you might not know that. So
true.
Watch them. Anyway, so we have a bunch of questions just to get to know you a little bit. And I think where we should start is your beginnings at BookEnds, right? You were a fellow in Emily Forney's fellowship last year in 2020. Was it last year in 2020?
Yeah, I know. I know the pandemic's added like a century, but
it really has.
Last year. Actually, I think it was the beginning of this year. It was February, yeah.
Oh, okay. So then you were a fellow in 2021. So can you tell us a little bit about that, how you sort of got to be a part of that, what the whole situation was like?
Yes, so it was, a perfect situation. I'm also a writer and creative. I'm sure most of us are. And so I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna, improve my craft. I'm gonna learn more about this industry. And it was like fate. Emily's Twitter post just appeared in my feed. I swear it's magic. And so I was so excited about it. I applied for it, obviously spoke with her. She made her decision, but I think it was the best, obvious experience. It brought me here. But apart from that, it allowed me to have and develop new connections with 6 super intelligent, creative other people who were part of the fellowship. And it was a really good mix. It was like a mix of meeting agents outside of BookEnds, within BookEnds, learning about all the processes in publishing, like editorial, marketing, etc. And apart from that, we also had assignments. So I think being part of that fellowship actually prepared me for being an agent. We developed wish lists, we did research on comps and publishing houses. So it was very extensive and it was a great experience.
When you applied for the fellowship, did you apply as a writer looking to learn more about publishing, or did you apply with the intention of, I want to work in publishing?
Well, I actually already worked in publishing, but it was in the independent sector. But I wanted to know more about the traditional world. It felt like a mystery. Like, how do you break in? And I know that someone like myself who is of color, it's even harder to figure out how to make those connections. It's all about who you know, and I didn't know anyone. So Emily's fellowship was a great opportunity for that.
So I think Emily breaks it down. There's like a month on agenting, a month on editing, a month, right? So what drew you to agenting? Probably the most.
Well, what drew me to agenting is I realized that at first I had already had in my mind like agent. And I think that's probably all I knew. And then once I learned about editorial, I'm like, this sounds interesting. But
that's so funny. It's usually the opposite.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my
Most
God.
people know an editor and they don't know. Well, that's how it was for me. They don't know who an agent is.
Well, I guess I'm just a weirdo, right, with that experience. But and this really matched more with my personality. I guess I'm an extroverted introvert. I'm very social outwardly. Sometimes I like my down moments, but it's really rewarding for me to like be a part of that process. And I love interacting with the author in those stages. And it's so satisfying for me, even though it's their project, to see it finish to the end, see the success, because I feel like I'm also winning. Whereas editorial, developing concepts and ideas is really nice, but you don't get that level of interaction. You're not allowed to be a part of the journey. So that was really the sell for me.
A completionist. And you also, was it part of the fellowship to develop your podcast, or was that something separate?
Yeah, so Emily also assigned for us to do a capstone project. She didn't tell us what we had to do. We could develop whatever we wanted. But as part of a running joke, people would always say that I have a unique voice. Like, oh, your voice is real distinct. Like if I heard you, I know it. And I'm just like, I don't know. When you hear yourself, it's different. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to use that. And I'm going to develop a podcast about Afrofuturism. So that ended up being, people automatically thought it would be about literature specifically. But where it really developed or became, the focus was Afrofuturism, but looking at real life, what people are doing in modern day and seeing how that could reflect in the future with an Afrofuturistic lens. And then also thinking if that was integrated in writing, how it would affect today. So almost like, that's why I like Spec Lit, because it's almost like that multiple mirrors looking back at you in all directions.
Is the podcast still active? Have you gone ahead and made the podcast or just planned it?
So the podcast is active. There was a little bit of a lull, obviously with the summer and a busy winter, becoming an agent and things like that. But I have some content backlog. There are about, I believe, 6 or more episodes. So
Oh, great.
it's Hollow Moon.
There you go. I was gonna say you have to plug it.
I'll give James a link and maybe you can add that.
Yeah, we'll
Is
put
it
the link in the
available
box.
on all podcast places?
Yes, it is available on Spotify, on Apple iPod. It is available on Anchor, Google Play. I think it's everywhere.
And you said Hollow Moon?
Hollow Moon, yes.
Okay.
So we obviously know a little bit of what it's like to start something like that, but what has been the most fun or the most challenging part of doing a podcast? I'm gonna be honest here. I have always been averse to podcasts. Well, to starting my own.
Oh,
podcast.
we're going public with this now,
Uh-oh.
aren't
Going
we?
public with it. I have
Here we
always been
go.
averse to it. So what has been like the what is it? The high and low?
The high is always interacting with people. Like, again, I love that interaction, learning new things because I don't know in detail the things that they are focusing on. So I'm learning as we're having that conversation. I think the hardest part with many things is just coordinating. Reaching out to them, prospecting is pretty easy, but as far as figuring a time when we can both sit down, that we're both available, really sit down, record, etc. And obviously mastering is time consuming. So I think those are the lows.
Yeah, time consuming. Say that again. It's what?
But I think it's a good idea. So we should probably do what
He who has a YouTube channel. So.
Well, moving on. No, so you mentioned your love of speculative fiction. And I know that that's sort of where you're starting to build your list. What is it that draws you to speculative fiction? And if you want to tell the viewers a little bit about what your list is hopefully going to look like, what you want to work in.
Can you actually talk about what speculative fiction is? Because I think a lot of our viewers may not even know. And I also think that there are different definitions depending on what your focus is, even within the industry. So I think viewers might like to hear a little bit of more detail on that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. If I miss something or if I'm wrong, you can correct me.
No, there's no wrong.
But speculative to me, speculative literature is like an umbrella term. So under that, I consider YA, not YA, but fantasy, horror, magical realism. Am I missing anything?
Sci-fi.
Oh yes, sci-fi, obviously. I think all of those fall under that umbrella term. So that can be for any of the genres like or middle grade, YA, adult, but essentially that's what I consider speculative. And I'm looking for all of that. So my preferences are for fantasy, whether for YA is dark fantasy, it could be low fantasy. I don't like Disney princess retellings, but if you have a villain, I'm all about that. And I'm trying to think what else. There's so many. I love that dark fantasy for adults like Sweeney Todd, something sick. I always said, like, if you're watching true crime, you know in your mind, I shouldn't be so intrigued, but I am. Something like that with a magical element. And I'm also interested in picture books that kind of lean away from spec lit, where it's focusing on culture and food and family, and it has more of that.
Now, do you prefer spec lit in the science fiction fantasy genres, or are you, because I think there's some of it like Mexican Gothic, which sort of falls into more of an upmarket literary category and is read by more general interest readers than a lot of the science fiction fantasy spec lit. I know when I was open to it briefly, I'm more in the Stations 11 Mexican Gothic kind of area, and I was getting a lot of science fiction fantasy spec lit, which wasn't for me.
Okay, so I'm more like you. I like sci-fi that has more fantasy than the technology. Like, the tech can be there. All I need to know is that it's useful, that it makes their lives easier or worse or whatever the case, but I don't need to know how it functions specifically and getting into the weeds of that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And if you'd like more information on what Ramona is looking for, you can visit our submissions page, obviously, just like any other agent at BookEnds. But other questions, we have other questions for you so the viewers can get to know you. We heard that you're bilingual.
Yes.
What
Hablo
languages?
español
How did that
también.
start?
What'd you
I
say?
said, what languages? How did that start?
Oh my gosh, how did that start? Well, I speak English and I speak Spanish fluently. I can read, write in both. And then with that, I have a general command of the Romance languages. So I can read some French, I can understand some French, probably Italian and Portuguese. But it started, I was just, again, I'm just a curious person. So my family is Cape Verdean, so they speak like a broken Portuguese. It's like Haitian Creole, how you think of that, but with Portuguese instead of French. And then I decided, okay, Spanish is like the second most popular language. I would like to learn this also just because it intrigued me. And so obviously I learned it in college, but I did study abroad. I was in Chile for abroad, and that's where I really learned. Like that's when my fluency hit, because it's survive and speak Spanish or don't. And so I chose survival. I learned it, and then I volunteered also in Central America and Guatemala, and I just continued on with it. So now it's like, you know, it's part of me. I know it fully, and I use it all the time.
Which is great because, you know, we at BookEnds have done a few books with bilingual authors who have written picture books specifically, where the publisher is doing two versions, an English and a Spanish version. So to have an agent who can be understanding and in tune of both languages is fantastic.
Yeah, it's becoming really common, especially in picture books, to have simultaneous publication, which is awesome. So
Oh, cool.
hopefully some of yours do.
I have one in the works.
Yeah. Okay, so your first week at BookEnds, you put us all to shame. Like in the recipes channel, which we have a recipes channel with all of Jessica's food analogies. Of course, we have to have a recipes channel. You posted 2 pies, and I think everybody just felt bad about themselves. So
Oh my God.
are you a baker, a cook? Is that your hobby of choice? Like, tell us about it.
I think even in my bio, I joked and said, like, I'm like the fable. I'm like the baker, the candlestick maker. I'm just not the butcher. And the first thing I learned how to do was bake before cook. And I used to, in Boston, we call them flea markets and not yard sales. And so when there was a flea market, I would like bake a cake and cut it into slices and sell the slices. But no, it's just like therapy for me. It's so relaxing. If I'm stressing, most people like, I don't want to touch bacon with a 10-foot pole, but you know, that's like my happy place. I just hyper focus, bake whatever it is. It could be cakes, pies, muffins, whatever, brownies, etc. I'm doing it. So
I can relate. When I'm stressed, I will make cookies, especially cookies. I'll bake anything, but
it's the number one reason I miss working in the office.
Yeah. Before then, like when at my other job, you know, before the pandemic, I would bake all the time, and I would literally walk through the doors with like fully decorated cakes.
You've got to get rid of it.
Oh, I just decided I made this. Here you go, everybody. Breakfast dessert.
It's dangerous to keep that in your house.
Oh yeah. I'm okay with getting everybody else fat. That's fine.
Right.
Well, I don't know about your house, but if you're an avid baker, it doesn't get eaten as much because people are just so used to it being around that they don't. So it goes to waste.
They take it for granted. I'm like, you have freshly baked pastries and you don't even care.
Don't even care.
I'm open to living in either house.
Can you pass the Oreos, please? I'm like, but
exactly.
I can relate.
Yeah, I do not have the patience to bake. It's just too precise for me.
I'm not that precise of a baker. Ramona, are you?
Me.
I am. I feel like it's very strict. Like when it comes to cooking savory, you can kind of like, you know, go free with it. But baking, I'm like, it's chemistry. You have to hit the exact thing. If you put too much salt, too much baking soda, it's
I eyeball pretty much everything I do.
You're probably used to it though. I don't know. I'm just, I guess I'm type A when it comes to baking.
Yeah, I'm not.
That's why I can't do it. Well, is there anything else our viewers should know about you, especially as you start this next leg of your career as an agent?
Yes, I guess one thing my friends were trying to tell me, like, I'm really big on loyalty and hard work. So if I'm working with an author and I see that they're trying their best, they're not giving up, they're going at it. Like, I'm gonna push your project and I'm gonna champion you as hard as you champion yourself. If I see like this really means a lot to you and you don't want to let it go, I'm going to match that energy. So I feel like that's what they should know about me, just going forward if they want me to be their agent.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing, and thanks for joining us on the YouTube channel. This will now live there forever.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you'd like to query Ramona, you know how to find our website. We have the links down below. And we hope to see you back here next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, we offer a number of great workshops through Speakeasy and other platforms.
These workshops have been a fun new thing that we've been doing, not just me and James, but others at BookEnds, where we work with you interactively on critiques, queries, and insights and answer questions into publishing. So you can find out more information on our website or through speakeasy.com, and we hope you'll sign up. Bye.